showers feeding into Kent and perhaps parts of East Anglia. They'll continue into the evening and overnight with areas of cloud here, and across parts of northern Scotland will continue that feed of milder and cloudier conditions. Otherwise, clear spells and temperatures falling away. Fairly widespread frost, if not air frost, we'll certainly see a ground frost in many places and a few fog patches to wake up to as well, primarily across southern and southwest England, a few spots in Wales. They'll soon enough lift and clear, and for many it's a fine day once again. Plenty of dry and bright weather. Still 1 or 2 showers for parts of Kent, and still some light rain and drizzle for the north and northwest of Scotland, as well as a keen breeze. 10 Celsius in the north, 8 to 10 further south, but with, again, bright blue skies for the Midlands into South Wales and southwest England. A bit more cloud for northern England, parts of northern and western Wales, as well as East Anglia and the southeast. And actually, for many, it's a cloudier night on Tuesday night, but where we get some clear spells, fairly extensive fog forming in the south, some dense fog patches around first thing. Then it turns windier, wetter and colder later.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
And welcome, it's another week of On the Money, your daily dose of economics, business and consumer news. I'm Liam Halligan, and for the next hour, we'll be asking, is Labour now the party of business? And we'll be getting to grips with the Northern Ireland Protocol, while honouring the memory of Sir David Amish. But first, it's the GB News headlines with Paul Hawkins.
Thanks, Liam. Good afternoon. Mourners are to pay their respects to the politician Sir David Amish at a funeral service and procession in his Southend West constituency. The father of 5 who was stabbed to death while holding a surgery at Belfairs Methodist Church in Leigh-on-Sea in October. At the service, his friend and former MP Anne Widdecombe is to give a speech, and a horse-drawn hearse will carry the casket through Southend. Liam will have much more on Sir David's funeral in just a moment. 5 people have died and more than 40 have been injured after a car ploughed through a Christmas parade in the American state of Wisconsin. An SUV broke through barriers in the city of Waukesha yesterday afternoon, hitting dozens of people, including children. One eyewitness said the SUV was doing 40 miles per hour when it hit the crowd. Police Chief Dan Thompson said a person of interest was in custody, but it wasn't known whether the incident was terrorism related. The Prime Minister says Britain can win the new green industrial revolution, but only if we act now. Boris Johnson has been speaking to business industry leaders at the CBI National Conference from the Port of Tyne in South Shields. He also announced that new homes in England must have electric car charging points from next year. The new measures will also force new supermarkets and workplaces, including those undergoing major renovations, to include charging points.
We're regulating so as to require new homes and buildings to have EV charging points, with another 145,000 charging points to be installed thanks to these regulations. We're investing in new projects to turn wind power into hydrogen, and the net zero strategy is expected to trigger about £90 billion of private sector investment, driving the creation of high-wage, high-skilled jobs across the UK.
Elsewhere this afternoon, energy provider Bulb has said it is to enter into special administration following challenging market conditions. The company blamed the rising cost of gas prices and what it calls volatile market situation, but said it will still provide a service as normal to its 1.7 million customers. More than 20 providers have collapsed in recent months following a soaring in the wholesale price of gas. Austria has become the first Western European country to enter a fourth nationwide lockdown to tackle soaring coronavirus cases. Austrians have to stay home and can only leave for essential reasons like food shopping, going to the doctor and exercising. Restaurants and most shops have closed, while large events have been cancelled. The government will re-evaluate the lockdown after 10 days. Back here, the government is facing a potential backlash from Tory MPs over changes to social care plans. Previously, the government said there would be a cap of £86,000 on care costs by 2023, but it's now considering a change to how contributions are calculated. Council funding support will no longer count towards that limit. Under the plans, only an individual's personal payments will be considered. Once the limit is hit, the local authority will pay. Some backbench MPs say the changes could hit poorer people hardest. The least well-off may have to sell their home, which would break a Tory manifesto pledge. Australia will begin to allow foreign visitors to enter the country from the start of December. Skilled workers, international students and refugees will be given priority, but they must hold an eligible visa and be fully vaccinated against COVID. The country did have one of the strictest border policies, allowing only a limited number of Australians and permanent residents in. And shoppers have been warned to be extra careful during Black Friday as millions of pounds were lost to scams over Christmas last year. Action Fraud, which is the National Reporting Centre for Fraud and Cybercrime, saw more than 28,000 people conned out of their money during the festive period. That's an increase of 61% compared with the year before. Nearly £2.5 million was lost to criminals during the Black Friday and Cyber Monday sale events last year. Personal finance expert Laura Retty told GB News that scams have become so sophisticated that anyone could be at risk. You're up to date with the latest news. We'll have more for you in half an hour.
And coming up on The Money today, with Labour leader Keir Starmer addressing the Confederation of British Industry, we ask, is Labour now the party of business? Plus, we'll be discussing the Northern Ireland Protocol as GB News gets ready to broadcast from Tuesday to Thursday this week from Belfast, Enniskillen and Coleraine. 3 very different parts of Northern Ireland. And as ever, I want your questions, suggestions, opinions. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet @GBNews. This is GB News. I'm Liam Halligan and you're on The Money. Now, before we get into On the Money proper, we wanted to mention the private service for murdered MP Sir David Amess that's just begun in his Southend West constituency, ahead of a service at Westminster Cathedral tomorrow. The father of 5, who was stabbed to death while holding a constituency surgery at Belfair's Methodist Church in Leigh-on-Sea last month, was a devout Catholic. Our GB News South East of England reporter Ellie Costello joins us live from Southend-on-Sea. Ellie, what can you tell us about this, I'm sure, very moving event?
Hi, Liam. Yes, a very sad, a very emotional and a very important day here in Southend for the private funeral of Sir David Amish. You might be able to make out the singing from the church behind me. This is St Mary's Church in Pritterwell, the Catholic church where Sir David attended, and his funeral is taking place now. It began about 5 minutes ago. His coffin was carried into the church with a Union Jack flag draped over it, and people in the street were stopped in their tracks and bowed their heads as that coffin was brought into the church. People were stood outside, crying outside the church, a testament to just how loved he was by the people in this community. Now, we're told that the church is at capacity. There are 450 people in there. That's friends, that's family. We've also spotted local cadet groups and scout groups as well, all of which Sir David Amish was very heavily involved in. A testament again to just how loved he was. The church is absolutely packed, and you can hear the singing from across the road. Really is very powerful and very moving here. Now, after the service ends at about 2:10, the hearse will then be put into a horse-drawn carriage, in very East End style, we're told. Sir David was born in the east of London, so it's a very fitting tribute for him. And then that horse-drawn carriage will process through the streets of Southend, the town that he loved so very much, the town that he campaigned for almost 20 years to become a city. And after his killing in October, the Queen granted Southend city status. So it is very fitting that that horse-drawn carriage will go through the streets of Southend, where people will be able to pay their respects to Sir David, who was a much loved and much respected MP. He served here for 25 years. Very much part and parcel of being here. Everybody knew his face and knew his name. Now, that procession will stop twice. It will stop at the Civic Centre, and it will also stop at his constituency office where Sir David worked. That will allow people to pay their respects there. There will also be a book of condolences for local people to sign as well before the coffin is brought back here to rest. And as you said, Liam, tomorrow is a much bigger service at Westminster Cathedral. We're expecting a message from the Pope to be read out at that service tomorrow. Anne Widdecombe will also be speaking and doing the eulogy at that service. But today is Mark Francois doing the eulogy for Sir David, a very close friend of Sir David. I just spoke to him now, and he said he was hoping to do the honour, to do the respect for his friend, his dear friend that he misses so very much. But today is about Sir David's family, it's about his friends and the local people who loved him so very much.
Thank you, Ellie, for that. Ellie Costello there, our South East of England reporter, trying to set the scene, really, of the local funeral of a much-loved MP, the late Sir David Amish. Now, during his budget statement last month, Rishi Sunak claimed the Conservatives were the party of public services. The Chancellor then pushed the UK tax burden, that's total tax revenues as a share of our economy, to the highest level for 70 years. With the Tories claiming that they're the party of the public sector, Keir Starmer's now doing his own political role reversal, because later this hour the Labour leader will address the Confederation of British Industry, where he will declare, get this, that Labour is now the party of business. You can hardly blame Starmer. The Tories have given him an open goal. Relations between the government and business are somewhat rocky, to say the least. Lots of northern firms, for instance, are upset the government has just scrapped the eastern, that's the Birmingham to Leeds leg, of the proposed HS2 high-speed rail link. The much-trumpeted Northern Powerhouse Rail project has also just been scaled back. Businesses want less regulation and lower taxes, a theme that Rachel Reeves exploited at Labour's party conference this autumn. The Shadow Chancellor pledged Starmer's party would entirely scrap business rates, a much-hated corporate levy which firms must pay on the value of their premises, whether they make profits or not. Starmer will today tell the Confederation of British Industry that his party's consigned the Jeremy Corbyn era to history. Sensing an opportunity, he'll make a bold pitch to commercial leaders by saying that Labour recognises, and I quote, "When businesses profit, we all profit." Playing on business fears about big spending, Boris, the Labour leader will claim his party won't simply throw cash at the country's problems. And he'll argue the UK needs an economic reset after Brexit and COVID. The Tories have overseen poor export performance and skills development since the Brexit transition expired at the start of this year, Starmer will argue, positioning Labour as, in his words, the party of work. We understand the need for stability, security and a plan, Starmer will say, playing on fears among parts of the Tory faithful in Westminster and beyond that the Prime Minister, embroiled in rows over second jobs, migration and much else, is presiding over what the traditionally Tory-supporting Spectator magazine recently dubbed Boris's Court of Chaos. What's clear amidst all this political squabbling is that many British businesses are now struggling in a tough commercial environment. Supply chain problems, labour and skills shortages, combined with rising taxes, are making life difficult for many firms. Not all these issues stem from decisions made by Johnson's government, of course, far from it. Inflation and supply chain snarl-ups are rampant across the rest of Europe and beyond. By stressing the need for more training, investment and lower regulation, though, Starmer is saying what business leaders want to hear. But what really matters, the issue at hand, is the extent to which such business leaders believe that he will do a better job. And that's our on-the-money question today. And here it is. Is Labour now the party of business? Now, a slightly shorter debate today, given that we've got lots of other things going on, but I'm delighted to welcome back two experts, friends of the show, to my panel. It's Helen Thomas, the CEO of Blonde Money, there she is, and John Longworth, former head of the British Chamber of Commerce and chairman of the Independent Business Network. Helen, you're long enough in the tooth, may I say, without being unchivalrous, to have seen lots of politics. You used to work for George Osborne, of course, when he was Shadow Chancellor. Are you surprised that Keir Starmer's tried to present Labour as the party of business at this moment in particular?
No, I'm not, because as you said there, Liam, in your great introduction, there's kind of an open goal here, where, of course, the current government is stretched in many, many different directions, and business has been taking the brunt. Because here's the thing. You go out there and you spend the vast amount of money that has been spent over this last 18 months. You know, the pandemic has changed everything. Then you've got to decide how you're going to stop doing that and who you're going to stop giving money to. So it's going to be a much tougher environment for all interest groups going forward. And it feels a lot of the time for business that they're getting left behind. So it's astute for Starmer to go for it. But from what we're hearing so far, I can't see that he has slam dunked the open goal, if I might mix my metaphors.
You used to run the British Chamber of Commerce, John. Famously, you now run something called the Independent Business Network, which is family-owned and operated businesses. Many of these businesses really the backbone of the British economy, many of them the small and medium-sized enterprises that we feature so often here on The Money. Are you buying this? Do you think that Starmer's onto something? His Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, has been impressing a lot of people lately. They want to scrap business rates. They seem to be pressing buttons that Boris Johnson isn't pressing.
That is true, and they may be onto something. But when I took over the British Chambers in 2011, the first interview I did was I said there is no party of business in the UK. And I still think that is true. In fact, the last time we had a party or a Prime Minister of Business was when we had a Whig Prime Minister. In fact, that was Mrs Thatcher.
OK.
In truth, because she was not a Tory, she was a Whig.
Whig with an H, historic reference, yeah.
Yeah, not an actual Whig. The thing is, for a party to be a party of business, it has to recognise enterprise and encourage enterprise, which means it's got to sort out access to finance, growth agendas, tax cuts for business and consumers, deregulation. None of those things we have heard from Boris Johnson. Doesn't pass his lips. The Labour Party have jumped on one issue, which is business rates, and correctly business rates need reforming. I mean, how can you have a mad system where if a manufacturer invests in new plant and machinery...
They get taxed on that new plant and machinery. Mad.
It's crazy.
And, of course, it helps the online retailing giants while the bricks and mortar retailers suffer at a time we're trying to salvage our high streets. So.
And they're speaking at the CBI at the moment. And, of course, I'm not a big fan of the CBI. I was their economic spokesperson for 5 years and chairman of the distributive trades panel of the CBI. So I know how they work. The fact of the matter is they are part of the blob themselves. They represent vested interests, multinationals, some of whom are not British-owned anyway, and many of whom do not pay tax in Britain, as you said, online retailers, online businesses generally. Enterprise in the UK, the 85% of the economy, which is family-owned or family-run, from individual plumbers and decorators through to big businesses like JCB, they are the backbone of the economy, and that's where enterprise lies. And levelling up is all about enterprise also, because a lot of these businesses operate in the regions, and this government and the Labour Party are both missing that.
Helen, let's come back to you. What do you make of Rachel Reeves? A lot of people at Westminster are talking about her. She had a very good response to Rishi Sunak's budget. She had to step in at the last minute for Keir Starmer because he was isolating due to COVID. She was all over the Sunday papers this weekend. Could she come forward as a sort of credible person that business could latch onto? There seems to be a lot of chaos in Downing Street meanwhile.
Rachel Reeves has certainly got a very credible background, you know, Bank of England, and as you say, has been saying some sensible things and is a decent communicator. I mean, I was quite struck by her standing in, as you say, on budget day at the very last minute. And her initial responses were clearly coming from her authentic voice, and she came out with a lot of passion and dealt with some thorny economic issues in a very sensible way. You know, because, look, you and I can talk, and John, we can all talk about these economic things, but for the man on the street, it's what does it really matter for me and my business? And that's what we need to get to. But here's one thing about the politics of this. I am struck, we'll see what Keir says, but I am struck that he seems to be fighting the last war. I see two themes in this speech he's going to give. One is about Brexit. Goodness knows what he's trying to do there, other than, I suppose, continue to bury that divide within his own party. But also say, you know, we're not going to splash the cash. He wants to basically skewer the ghost of Corbyn past. But we've all moved on. And this actually is a moment, opportunity to lay out a real plan and be the party for business. As your studio guest there just mentioned, we really haven't had one for a very long time. But to me, so far, we'll see what he says, but it looks like Sir Keir is going to miss the opportunity again with this speech today.
Well, thank you to Helen Thomas, CEO of Blonde Money, our ghost skewerer-in-chief. There she is. And we'll be picking up this discussion with John Longworth later in the show. You're watching On the Money with me, Liam Halligan. After the break, it's all about Northern Ireland, as we'll be taking On the Money on the road for the rest of the week, presenting from Belfast, from Enniskillen, from Coleraine, up there on the beautiful north coast of Northern Ireland, and meeting business leaders and the broader community from across Ulster. Stay with us to find out more. You're On the Money.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello again. Before the weather turns colder and much more unsettled later this week, it's a fine start to the week for many of us. Sunny spells, showers for some, mainly towards the far north, across northern parts of Scotland, with these weather fronts close by, and also a few feeding into parts of southeast England. Otherwise, many places experiencing the fine weather brought about by an area of high pressure, and as a result, for the vast majority, it is a dry afternoon and a sunny one as well. Plenty of sunshine for southern Scotland, much of England, Wales, into southern parts of Northern Ireland. Areas of cloud into northern Scotland, some drizzly showers and outbreaks of light rain for the far north and northwest. A little milder here, and also some showers feeding into Kent and perhaps parts of East Anglia. They'll continue into the evening and overnight, with areas of cloud here and across parts of northern Scotland will continue that feed of milder and cloudier conditions. Otherwise, clear spells and temperatures falling away. Fairly widespread frost, if not air frost, we'll certainly see a ground frost in many places and a few fog patches to wake up to as well, primarily across southern and southwest England, a few spots in Wales. They'll soon enough lift and clear, and for many it's a fine day once again. Plenty of dry and bright weather. Still 1 or 2 showers for parts of Kent, and still some light rain and drizzle for the north and northwest of Scotland, as well as a keen breeze. 10 Celsius in the north, 8 to 10 further south, but with, again, bright blue skies for the Midlands into South Wales and southwest England. A bit more cloud for northern England, parts of northern and western Wales, as well as East Anglia and the southeast. And actually, for many, it's a cloudier night on Tuesday night, but where we get some clear spells, fairly extensive fog forming in the south, some dense fog patches around first thing. Then it turns windier, wetter and colder later.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Welcome back. You're on the money with me, Liam Halligan. Now, as the EU and the UK continue to negotiate changes to that tortured Northern Ireland Protocol, all this week on GB News, we're looking at what it is, why it's a problem, and how it's affected people's lives across the country and across Northern Ireland in particular. The protocol is part of the Brexit withdrawal agreement. It means Northern Ireland is part of the UK, but still in the EU's single market for goods, with the aim of avoiding a hard border across the island of Ireland. That so far meant more customs checks and paperwork for some goods travelling from Britain to Northern Ireland. The protocol means that economically, Northern Ireland is now constitutionally different from the rest of the UK, and it's that difference which really angers lots of the unionist community. They see the protocol as an affront to their British identity, as Paul Hawkins has been finding out.
The crowd should disperse immediately. This force is about to be used against violent individuals.
In the spring of 2021, loyalist areas across several Northern Ireland towns and cities saw rioting. It was nothing like the Troubles, but 90 officers were hurt as police were pelted with bricks, fireworks and petrol bombs. Most of those taking part were young men for a multitude of reasons. One of them, the protocol.
I'm careful not to call that what happened there a riot, because I think that's just slightly inaccurate. I think it was a demonstration. and it was a demonstration of anger and frustration on behalf of the protesters. And I think on the police it was a demonstration of strength and power, and that's not the approach.
Would you say it was a peaceful demonstration?
No.
I want to make it absolutely clear that under no circumstances will I allow the EU or anyone else to create any kind of division down the Irish Sea or to attenuate our union.
That I think every bonfire this year should have had Boris Johnson's face nailed to the front, because he is an absolute traitor. I struggle to believe that any Prime Minister wouldn't know that putting a border and separating Northern Ireland's economy from the rest of the UK would excuse my French, but off unionists. Boris Johnson's behaviour has been blatantly dishonest. He promised there wouldn't be any checks between Northern Ireland and GB. He promised that. So that's a promise broken. So his word means absolutely nothing to us. He's a traitor to us. I feel like a lot of people, including myself, feel that the protocol, it's no longer that we're approaching an issue here, we're approaching a crisis. It's like this law is completely and utterly unacceptable to us, and it's already in place. If we don't really show how serious we feel about this issue, we're done. I mean, what is a United Ireland, realistically? It's the economy, it's the institutions, it's the flag, what is all that stuff?
Loads of stuff, yeah.
We've just lost the economy. We're now basically an economic United Ireland. We're acting as if we are one. That is horrible and horrifying to us, especially whenever we were promised, in the name of peace, that wouldn't happen without our consent.
Now that's just a short clip from our 30-minute GB News documentary called Northern Ireland, The Problem with the Protocol. It will be released on YouTube on Friday, as well as here at On The Money. You can see the full-length version at 2:30. And we'll be showing fragments of the documentary throughout Northern Ireland Week on Darren McCaffrey's show, The Briefing. Both Darren and I will be presenting our shows from Northern Ireland in Belfast, then Enniskillen, then Coleraine, throughout this week on Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. So we're really having a moment here at GB News where we come to Northern Ireland and focus our coverage on that part of the UK for 1 week. So that will be from tomorrow in Northern Ireland. And before that, our Northern Ireland reporter, Dougie Beattie, he'll be there with us. And Dougie joins us now. Dougie, you've been examining the protocol in much great detail, as we all do. What can viewers expect from GB News this week and our Northern Ireland coverage?
Well, first of all, welcome to Enniskillen. This is a market town. Behind me is a 600-year-old castle belonging to the Maguires. It then housed soldiers of the Enniskillen Fusiliers. This is the type of town that actually suffers, always has done, suffers and then thrives, depending on what the exchange rate is. Just about 10 miles to the right of me here is the Irish Republic, and people would have came across to get their fuel here when the sterling was lower and vice versa. So those type of issues are still playing in Northern Ireland, but we're having supply chain issues mainly around pharmaceuticals. The beef industry, you must say, are happy enough with the protocol. I was with a manufacturing or electronics manufacturer this morning who was extremely happy with the protocol because it gives them access to both markets. But again, there's an awful lot of paperwork to be done to bring in raw materials, and that is proving to be a problem to Northern Ireland. But I think by the time you get here, areas like this are actually so dependent on hospitality. There's now a bun fight has started inside the Northern Ireland Executive, the government here, over COVID passports. The government came down like the Minister of Good News and just announced that they were going to insist that COVID passports were to be used without any word to the hospitality industry of how they were going to pay for it. So that is causing problems. The Northern Ireland Federation of Small Businesses, the Hospitality Ulster, all millions and millions of pounds worth of properties and businesses are not very happy at all with what's going on here. But I will enjoy taking you around Northern Ireland. Enniskillen here is extremely picturesque. It is a fantastic tourist spot. As I'm standing here, the river beside me, the fish are actually jumping. It is quite amazing. It is cold though, I must say, so wrap up warm when you come here. The North Antrim coast, we'll be going up there. I've had a word with the clerk of the course, our race director for the Northwest 200. It's one of the biggest motorcycle races on roads in the world. It hasn't ran in 2 years up there because of COVID, and it brings about £13 million into the economy each time it runs, so you can imagine the problems that that's causing. But really, politically is the problem where the protocol sits, and the explanation of it and the clarity on it, and that includes the protocol. It includes COVID regulations as well, and I think that's not just here in Northern Ireland. I think that's the whole way across Britain, and indeed we're seeing that playing out in Europe. People want clarity as to what's happening, what rules they're meant to follow and what rules they're not meant to follow. But Northern Ireland is my home place, and I really am looking forward to bringing you here.
That's wonderful. Doogie Beattie, our Northern Ireland reporter. We're looking forward to seeing you too, Doogie, and going around the corners of that wonderful part of the UK. The reason I'm going as the business economics editor, as well as Darren McCaffrey, is because we're focusing not just on the protocol and peace, but also prosperity. There's a lot of business, a lot of commerce going on in Northern Ireland, and a lot of it is of very high quality, and that's one of the reasons I'm going to focus on that. After the break, we'll be hearing Sir Keir Starmer's much-anticipated speech at the annual Confederation of British Industry Conference. But first, it's the GB News headlines. It's that man again. It's Paul Hawkins.
Thanks, Liam. Mourners are paying their respects to the politician Sir David Amess at a funeral service and procession in his Southend West constituency. Sir David's coffin, draped in a Union flag, has been carried to the church by members of Southend Fire and Rescue Service. The father of 5 was stabbed to death while holding a surgery at Belfairs Methodist Church in Leigh-on-Sea in October. Energy provider Bulb has said it is to enter into special administration following challenging market conditions. The company blamed the rising cost of gas prices and what it calls volatile market situation, but said it will still provide a service as normal to its 1.7 million customers. More than 20 providers have collapsed in recent months following a big rise in the wholesale price of gas. 5 people have died and more than 40 have been injured after a car ploughed through a Christmas parade in the American state of Wisconsin. An SUV broke through barriers in the city of Waukesha yesterday afternoon, hitting dozens of people, including children. One eyewitness said the SUV was doing 40 miles per hour when it hit the crowd. The Prime Minister says Britain can win the new green industrial revolution, but only if we act now. Boris Johnson has been speaking to business industry leaders at the CBI National Conference from the Port of Tyne in South Shields. He also announced that new homes in England must have electric car charging points from next year. Those are your top stories this hour. We'll have more for you at 2.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Welcome back. You're on the money, and we're crossing over live to Port of Tyne, where Sir Keir Starmer's making a speech at the Confederation of British Industries annual conference. Here he is.
Yesterday. Britain is not as dynamic, as competitive and profitable as we need to be. And today I want to discuss how we can create a contract together to put that right. In a way, we've always been bound together. The Labour Party and the CBI. The CBI was founded, at least in part, as a response to a Labour government. Your commemorative book, many of you will have seen that commemorative book, called The CBI, 50 Years of Business Innovation, notes that the radical policies of the Wilson government resulted in sharply divided tactics amongst your members. Today, I want to give you a flavour of a future radical Labour government that will not provoke division. Because if you get above the political fray and survey the British economy over a longer time frame, we have a familiar and a persistent problem. We still haven't cracked productivity. Now, I heard what the Prime Minister said this morning, but I'm afraid that even before the pandemic, Britain went through the worst decade of productivity growth since the Industrial Revolution. The worst decade. Now, that is staggering. Now, of course, the government has its own answer to the productivity problem. He's called Geoffrey Cox. But we might need a little bit more than that. Now, it's not as if we don't know the answer. We need increased business investment and better capital stock and improved infrastructure. We need to embrace new technology. We need to lift our export performance. We need cities outside of the southeast to become economic powerhouses, which is why it was so devastating to see the government rip up its promises in relation to HS2 and the Northern Powerhouse Rail. These are not just train lines. They're lifelines for businesses and commuters. And it's not just a betrayal of the North, it's a betrayal of the economic potential of those regions, denying them the growth that your Director General, Tony Danker, has championed so effectively, including in his speech this morning. And if we're really serious about improving productivity, then most of all, we need to invest in our people to ensure they have the skills that are right for the modern economy. After the pandemic and after Brexit, we need a national reset. The business community and the political world need to work together. We both have a job to do. That job is to remake Britain. And that means remaking Britain's economy so that it's fit for purpose and fit for the future. Now, relations between politics and business have not always been warm. The Prime Minister himself has not exactly been complimentary. I can promise you that the only F words I will be using are foreign investment, fair trade, fiscal policy and fiduciary duty. I know that we have bridges to build. And I want to start that dialogue with you today. I want to start that conversation by thanking you for the part you've played, especially in the last 18 months, where your incredible resilience and hard work help protect livelihoods and communities. Your leadership made a real difference. And I think, and I'm sure you share this, that the reputation of our businesses has been enhanced by what you've done in the last 18 months, 2 years. So let me describe how I see my side of the contract. Getting our economy to grow, getting to grips with the problem of productivity, and giving business a generation of young people ready for work. Any contract, of course, needs to be based on stability in tax policy, in regulation, and the terms of trade. You want as much certainty as you can get. You want independent institutions, treaties that are respected, contracts that are enforced. After COVID and Brexit, our public finances are in a fragile state. In her recent speech, Rachel Reeves, my brilliant Shadow Chancellor, made her commitment to fiscal discipline abundantly clear. Our 5 fiscal rules made it plain that we will never spend money just for the sake of it. We really don't think that the solution to every problem is to throw cash at it. And just as every one of you scrutinises the cost side of your business, constantly asking if investments are paying off, we'll do the same on behalf of the tax-paying public. The problem we face today is that we have no industrial strategy, no business plan. The budget, the recent budget, was an opportunity to address that and remake Britain. But it was an opportunity that was missed. In Tony Danker's own words, he said it isn't bold enough to deliver the high investment, high productivity economy the government seeks. I think putting a cap on investment, as the government has, is a false economy. It's a cap on ambition and a cap on productivity. And there's nothing that suggests a government getting to grips with the scale of the challenge. And you can see all around what happens when a government has no plan. It's happening now. Prices going up. Energy getting more expensive. Taxes rising £3,000 more per household by 2026. £3,000. And with the effects of Brexit and COVID working together, a shortage of labour. And the really irritating thing about this is it was all so predictable. Lord Villamoria himself warned, I think, in June, about the perfect storm of economic problems that was brewing. He pointed, I think, to HGV and to the drivers, as well as butchers, brewers and welders. It's the same in professional services and the same in manufacturing. This is, in part, about Brexit. Because the government thinks all it has to do is say the words, get Brexit done. It has absolutely no plan to make Brexit work. Let me be clear. Labour is not planning a rematch. Brexit has happened, and we're not going to rejoin. But it's obvious that a poorly thought through Brexit is holding Britain back. It's astonishing to see a government that negotiated a treaty now complaining that the deal they signed doesn't work. Wait till the Prime Minister finds out who negotiated the Northern Ireland Protocol. I wish he would stop picking fights for the sake of it and just get on with it. Labour will work with you with business on this. We should carry out a transparent and honest analysis together of all the holes in the Prime Minister's deal. We need to work out how we can fill them, and fast, without the risk of trade wars, without erecting further barriers to cooperation with our allies, and without the need for even more years of painful negotiations. Now, of course, decisions that have been made must be respected, and negotiations will be tough. And this is a message to both sides of the Channel. We all have a duty to make Brexit work. So bear with me as I give you some concrete examples of what we would do. We would negotiate a new veterinary agreement for trade in agri-products. Now, this would have two benefits. First, it would help to get through the impasse over the Northern Ireland Protocol. Second, it would cut red tape and barriers for exporters across the United Kingdom. Labour would also look to find an agreement on mutual recognition of conformity assessments across all sectors. That would mean that our producers would no longer have to complete two sets of tests. There would be no need for two certification processes to sell goods in both the UK and the EU. We would also seek regulatory equivalence for financial services and mutual recognition of professional qualifications, because we absolutely recognise the importance of looking after our world-class financial and professional service businesses. We would also seek to maintain Britain's data adequacy status. That would mean that our data protection rules would continue to be deemed equivalent to those in the EU, which would in turn make UK digital services companies more competitive. And finally, we would seek a better long-term deal for UK hauliers to ease the supply chain problems we're seeing. Now, this is a plan that follows closely what many of you have told me is needed to move us towards the closer trading arrangement that we need with the EU. I believe that all of this is achievable by robustly defending our interests and patiently negotiating. But you will all know this. There's one further element: leadership. Trust matters in international negotiations. But with this Prime Minister, that ingredient is missing. Instead, what do we get? We get a series of pantomime disputes, which is no good for British business, nor for the British public, and no help at all as we tackle the task of remaking Britain. So let me come to where the government most needs to keep its side of the contract, to ensure that our people get the skills that they need. The battle for talent will be one of the defining issues of the 21st century. As I travel around the country talking to businesses, I'm constantly struck by how often I'm told about the skills shortages. A recent survey I saw showed that 80% of businesses were worried about skills. The world has changed, you know this. The demand of skills has changed. Business leaders tell me that the skills we need today to be more productive are critical thinking, creativity, communication, and the ability to work in a team. And it's long been my view that we just don't value technical and vocational skills nearly enough. So it's no wonder that this country does much worse in computer skills than our economic rivals. No wonder that fewer than half of employers believe young people have the digital skills required. Think of all the students that we effectively abandon at the age of 18. 40% leave education without essential qualifications. 40%. A lot of these students could really flourish if they received a high-quality technical training. Yet, funding per student in further education and sixth form colleges has fallen by 11% in real terms since 2010. And that's why today I'm announcing my new Council of Skills Advisors. David Blunkett, working along with the tech entrepreneur, Praful Nargund, and the skills expert, Rachel Sanby-Thomas, to recommend the change we need to ensure everyone leaves education job-ready and life-ready. My council will explore how to ensure that young people are literate in the technology of the day. That's why we would add digital skills to the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic. That's how seriously we take digital skills. And I also want my council to advise me on how we can lift the sights of all pupils. We must encourage their ambition and be more ambitious for them. In my own constituency, there's a wonderful school, primary school, called Rill Primary School, which runs a great programme called Raising Aspirations. Employers like Mercedes, Derwent, Google, the Ritz, the Crick Institute inspire the children to think about the jobs they might do, jobs they might never have considered before or even heard of. Just recently, the kids met Lewis Hamilton to learn about engineering, where we have a significant skills shortage. I can't tell you what a difference this kind of thing does. Better skills are vital if we're to improve productivity and economic growth. That's why getting the next generation ready for work will be my mission as leader of the Labour Party.
You can continue watching that speech live from Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer on the GB News Facebook page. I'm still with John Longworth, former head of the British Chamber of Commerce and now chairman of the Independent Business Network. John, what did you make of that speech?
Well, I was really hoping that Starmer would set out an agenda for super growth to actually boost enterprise in the UK. And he said all the right words at the beginning of the speech, but then set out an agenda to rejoin the protectionist European Union by stealth. Because all the things he set out were nothing to do with boosting enterprise, it was to do with cozying up to the EU and essentially rejoining the single market and customs union, building a protectionist barrier around the UK and the EU. No doubt the CBI will love it.
But you would acknowledge, John, that a lot of business leaders are pretty alarmed at Boris Johnson's actions, the fact that corporation tax is going up, the fact that there was no review of business rates in Rishi Sunak's budget, the fact that earlier this morning, it must be said, he gave a pretty shambolic speech at the CBI himself, where he lost his place and sounded quite confused.
Yeah, absolutely. So they should be alarmed by it. And of course, they should be alarmed by the fact that his entire business agenda seems to be about creating a green economy, but in a way that's going to cost a huge amount of money, rather than a way that's going to actually boost the economy in the meantime. The fact of the matter is, as I said at the beginning of this programme, there is no party of business and enterprise in the UK at the moment.
John Longworth, chair of the Independent Business Network, thanks for joining us as ever. You've been watching On the Money with me, Liam Halligan. Tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday, this show will be live in Northern Ireland. First up, we'll be broadcasting from Belfast with a panel of industry experts. We'll see you then at 1 p.m. Thanks for joining me today. This is GB News. I'm Liam Halligan, and that was On the Money.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello again. Before the weather turns colder and much more unsettled later this week, it's a fine start to the week for many of us. Sunny spells, showers for some, mainly towards the far north, across northern parts of Scotland, with these weather fronts close by, and also a few feeding into parts of southeast England. Otherwise, many places experiencing the fine weather brought about by an area of high pressure, and as a result, for the vast majority, it is a dry afternoon and a sunny one as well. Plenty of sunshine for southern Scotland, much of England, Wales, into southern parts of Northern Ireland. Areas of cloud into northern Scotland, some drizzly showers and outbreaks of light rain for the far north and northwest. A little milder here, and also some showers feeding into Kent and perhaps parts of East Anglia. They'll continue into the evening and overnight, with areas of cloud here, and across parts of northern Scotland will continue that feed of milder and cloudier conditions. Otherwise, clear spells and temperatures falling away. Fairly widespread frost, if not air frost, will certainly see a ground frost in many places and a few fog patches to wake up to as well, primarily across southern and southwest England, a few spots in Wales. They'll soon enough lift and clear, and for many it's a fine day once again. Plenty of dry and bright weather. Still 1 or 2 showers for parts of Kent, and still some light rain and drizzle for the north and northwest of Scotland, as well as a keen breeze. 10 Celsius in the north, 8 to 10 further south, but with, again, bright blue skies for the Midlands into South Wales and southwest England. A bit more cloud for northern England, parts of northern and western Wales, as well as East Anglia and the southeast. And actually, for many, it's a cloudier night on Tuesday night, but where we get some clear spells. Fairly extensive fog forming in the south, some dense fog patches around first thing. Then it turns windier, wetter and colder later.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.